Is funny. Meanwhile, in other news, she was the face of the IRS scandal. Now Lois Lerner wants to make sure her testimony about targeting the Tea Party never sees the light of day. She and her colleague, Holly Paz, now claim they and their family members face death threats and may face even more retaliation from the public if what they said behind closed doors is released. So what could possibly be so damaging in those deposition tapes? Here to weigh in is former national coordinator and co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots and the current president of Citizens for Self-Governance, Mark Meckler. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, so she says that if the public finds out what she said in this court proceeding, she fears for her life. Do you believe her?
I don't believe her, and the implication is really outrageous. What she's saying is that what she said in that deposition about what she did to Tea Partiers and other constitutionally minded folks around the country is so bad that people will be outraged. To me, that leans us towards we have a right to know, and we certainly ought to know.
Sure. According to the Washington Times, it says the government admits not only didn't she didn't stop the targeting, contradicting Obama administration claims, but also hid it from her superiors in Washington, D.C. So clearly she did things that she does not want the public to know.
Yeah, clearly, and the thing that I find so outrageous is from what you just read, we already know on the public record that she did these things. We just don't know all the details. And the American people, when their own government, when the IRS targets them, they certainly have a right to know what their employees did.
I think we all want to know who told her to go ahead and do that. But if this remains redacted, there's no chance for us to find out, is there?
There isn't, and to me, this is the most important part of this case. This was a class action that was recently settled. We're waiting for the judge to approve that settlement. But the most important part is that the American people have a right to know. The only way that you stop this sort of thing from happening again in the future is if we know exactly what happened, and that is precisely what Lois Lerner and Holly Paz are trying to prevent from happening.
Well, here's the problem for you is they blame you as one of the reasons. You're a troublemaker who's stirring stuff up, among other things, you called IRS agents criminal thugs, and because of things you have said, they're in danger.
Well, I mean, first of all, I did call them criminal thugs. I want to admit that on the record. But I also want to say I don't support harassment or abuse or threats against anybody, even government officials who act like criminal thugs. But I did say those things, and it's funny if you watch the videotape where I said them. I'm wearing a cowboy hat and a plaid shirt. I'm speaking in front of a local Tea Party. Hardly the kind of thing that seems threatening.
Well, here's the thing. The Cincinnati Enquirer, the big newspaper out in the jurisdiction where these court proceedings are happening, they're trying to get through the Freedom of Information Act, all sorts of the testimony so that they can know what exactly was said. So maybe if she's not successful, then in turn, the local newspaper out there can find out what she told people about this thing.
Well, we're certainly hoping so. I mean, and this seems like a basic issue of common sense and transparency. The American people have a right to know. The IRS has admitted that they were targeting American citizens for their political points of view. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, said that this is outrageous and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. The IRS owes the American people an apology. More important than an apology to me is just the knowledge of what actually happened. We know some of the details, but obviously Lois Lerner is still hiding a lot more of them.
Mark, didn't you think that because of the things he had said out on the campaign trail as a candidate, when Donald Trump became president of the United States, didn't you think we were going to find out more about what happened at the IRS? And, you know, he would probably get there and fire the IRS Commissioner Koskinen. None of that stuff happened.
Yeah, and I can tell you there are a lot of folks out there that are really frustrated by that. Koskinen gets to serve out his term. There really isn't much reform at the IRS. Certainly the DOJ was helpful in settling this case in the end. It would not have settled under a Hillary administration. But we still have the right to know, and it is time to blow this thing wide open. And honestly, it is up to President Trump, Secretary Mnuchin, to get this done.
There are no statute of limitations regarding this stuff. I mean, the government can open the books and tell us what happened, right?
They can, and again, this should be the legacy of this whole targeting scandal, not just a settlement of the case. I'm glad that the case is settled. The plaintiffs are glad that it's settled. But the most important part is, again, this knowledge, because daylight is a disinfectant. We know some really bad things happened, and it's time for the American people to know all of them.
I think you're right. All right, Mark Meckler, we thank you very much for joining us today from Grass Valley, California. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.